And just to let everyone know, we are now live on the internet. Thank you. Member Vujeni, could I ask you for a quick microphone test?
Hi. Yes, I'm here.
Thank you very much.
All right.
Member Amador Lebeau, could I ask you for a quick mic test?
I'm here.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, me neither.
Judge Manley, could I ask you to do a quick mic test?
Yes, sir. Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Okay.
Yes, thank you very much. And we are live on the internet, just to let everyone know. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. This is Maya, Supervisor Chavez's staff. We gave her a time check. She's just coming out of a different committee meeting, but she'll be here.
Hi, all. Pending Supervisor Chavez being able to join us, I know sometimes it takes a little while to get through the roll call. So why don't I ask the clerk to start that process? Again, please unmute when you respond here, just because I know we've had issues with that before. Thanks. Clerk, if you can do the roll call.
Great, thank you very much. Just one moment.
Oh, Supervisor Chavez has joined us. We were just going to start the roll calls. We know that can sometimes be time consuming. We wanted to get that done.
Thank you so much. And I
Frank,
apologize for joining you late. Thank you.
Okay, this is Frank Soriano, the Deputy Clerk. I'll go ahead and start the roll call. Chairperson Chavez.
Yes. I mean, here, sorry.
Thank you. Member Lori Smith. Not present. Member Tomalinas. Absent. Member Ryan.
Present, Deborah, Ryan, and Judge Zahner is not going to be here. He's going to be taking over, I think, starting in 2021. So this will be my final meeting as presiding judge.
Great, thank you very much.
Thanks.
Member Wapensky.
Here. Yep, and let me get you that.
Thank you. Member Garnett.
I'm here. Thank you.
Thank you. Member Hardy. Not present at the moment. Member Dr. Sarah Cody. And member Rhonda McClinton Brown. They're both absent. Member Esparza.
Here.
Thank you. Member O'Neill.
Good afternoon, I'm here.
Thank you very much. Member Silver.
Good afternoon. I'm here.
Thank you. Member D.A. Rosen. not present, but we see Member Angel. Are you present?
That's correct. I'm here. Good morning. Good afternoon.
Thank you very much. Member Chief Nikolai.
I'm here.
Thank you very much. Member Menakochi.
Here.
Thank you. Member Shing is not with us. Member Terrell.
Here.
Thank you. Member Mills.
I'm here. Thank you, Frank.
Thank you very much. Member Dr. Dewan.
This is Steve Almost. I'm attending.
Oh, sorry. Member Dewan here.
Okay, great. Thank you. I registered both Member Dewan and Member Almost. Thank you very much. Member Goxiola. Pablo Goxiola is absent. Member Fisk.
Present. Thank you.
Thank you. Member Michaeline Reagan.
Hi, here. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Member Marquez.
Present.
Thank you. And I see you're here in Member Hersig's place. Member Aaron O'Brien.
Present.
Thank you very much. Member Amador Lebeau.
Present.
Thank you very much. I see you're here in place of Kwasi Waddle. And Member Pastor Williams. Member Yi, Christina Yi. Absent. Member Christine Clifford.
I'm here. Thank you.
Thank you. Member Judge Manley.
Present.
Thank you. Member Consuelo Hernandez. Consuelo? Absent. Okay. Member Dr. Day.
Present.
Thank you. Member Paramatam. Okay, thank you. He's present, but it's fine. Member Crocker Cook.
I'm here.
Thank you very much. Member Mukuyama. Wes Mukuyama. Absent. Member Vujeni. Kishan Vujeni.
Present.
Thank you very much. A member, you're here in Usha's place.
I am the primary and she's alternate.
Great, thank you very much. Noted. Member Chief Garcia.
He's now retired, acting Assistant Chief Dave Tyndall here for him.
Thank you very much. Appreciate that. Member Halcone.
Present.
Thank you. Member Amanda Clifford.
Present.
Thank you very much. And finally, Member Todd Kendrick. Member Kendrick. Okay, thank you for your patience, everyone. We have a quorum.
Thank you very much. We're going to now go to public comment. This is an opportunity to speak to an item that is not on the agenda, but within the purview of the committee. We'll give each speaker 2 minutes. Then we're going to come back. I just want to describe the agenda for everybody to approve the consent calendar, which is items 9, 10, and 11. And then we have a series of reports that are mostly report backs based on input from all of you. And so I'm looking forward to getting your feedback and thoughts on what the staff is presenting. So with that, we'll go to public comment and then we'll go to the consent calendar.
Madam Chair, would you like to set 3 minutes for public comment?
No, 2, please.
Thank you very much. The next speaker is Scott Largent. I am unmuting you. Please accept the unmute and you'll have 2 minutes to speak. The timer will start when you begin speaking.
Good afternoon, everyone. Scott Largent. Having a couple little issues with Zoom. It did kick me off 2 or 3 times, but hopefully you can all see me. Not see me, hear me. I see the clock going. Great. Thank you. Over the last 11 days, actually 12 days, I have been participating in Zoom visits with my daughter, and they're about an hour and a half long. This is through Healthy Families, Happy Families. This type of visitation I cannot afford. I told you guys that it was extremely expensive for me to see my daughter for several years, and it was just making it impossible to get out of my situation. Having a list of all these different visits scheduled out over the next 90 days is hope. It's something that I have to look forward to every single day. I can look at my phone. I know this visit's coming. I get excited about it. There's the link. Because I'm telling you guys, Zoom was just killing me over time. I was done with Zoom. It was, now I absolutely love Zoom because I get to talk to my daughter. Another thing I want to kind of bring up, and it's something I talk about a lot, we do need some type of navigation center. Now, everybody's going to take off for the holidays, and I've experienced what the streets are like, and especially over here, no one's going to be around to help anybody. And I'm just hoping that we could set something up in place with the county to maybe have the ability for people to cook food, properly wash their hands, maybe some heat lamps out there, something to get creative with it, because there are people, and I did put a video up online of a man that died across the street from St. James Park. The shelters are not taking anybody in right now. This man would have had to have gone to the armory in Gilroy. There's just nothing available. So we need to get creative for the holidays because more people will die on it.
This concludes the public speakers.
Thank you. I'm going to go now to the consent calendar, and this is item 9, the minutes from October 21st. Item 10, our meeting schedule for 2021, and item 11, our reentry resource center quarterly dashboard. Are there any comments or questions on the consent calendar? If there aren't, may I ask for a motion?
Motion to move.
Thank you. That's from Member Garnett. And may I have a second?
Second, Judge Manley.
Thank you. A second from Judge Manley. Any other comments or discussion? I have no hands raised on this item, no public comment. So with that, I'm going to ask for a roll call vote.
Chairperson Chavez,
Yes.
Member Lori Smith, okay, Member Tomalinas.
Yes.
Thank you. Member Ryan.
Yes.
Thank you. Member Wapensky.
Yes.
Thank you. Member Garnett.
Yes.
Thank you. Member Esparza.
Yes.
Thank you. Member O'Neill.
Yes.
Thank you. Member Angel.
Yes.
Thank you. Member Nikolai.
Yes.
Thank you. Member Manicochi.
Yes.
Thank you. Member Terrell.
Yes.
Thank you. Member Mills.
Yes.
Thank you. Member Dewan.
Yes.
Thank you. Member Pablo Gaxiola. Okay. Member Fisk.
Yes.
Thank you. Member Marquez.
Yes.
Thank you. Member O'Brien.
Yeah.
Thank you. Member Almador Lebeau.
Yes.
Thank you. Member Tony Williams. Member Christina Yee. Member Christine Clifford.
Yes.
Thank you. Member Judge Manley.
Yes.
Judge Manley, thank you. Member Hernandez. Thank you. Member Dr. Day.
Yes.
Thank you. Member Crocker Cook.
Yes.
Thank you. Member Keyshawn Vujeni.
Yes.
Thank you. Member Tyndall.
Yes.
Thank you. Member Halcone.
Yes.
Thank you. Member Amanda Clifford.
Yes.
Thank you. And finally, Member Todd Kendrick. Okay, not present, but the item passes.
Thank you very much, Frank, and thank you. I know you have the hardest job in our meeting today, hardest job in show business. All right. So with that, we're going to get a report from Custody Health Services relative to the access to medication upon release from jail. I know that this committee has been working on this item since May of 2017. I'm really pleased to introduce Dr. Day, who's going to walk us through this report. We'll then go to the public for comment and then back to the group for discussion and feedback.
Okay, very good. And I'm going to go ahead and upload the PowerPoint in just a moment.
Thank you. And I'm going to ask the staff, could you make me a co-host? And just so you all know, the reason I do that is if you go off of mute and you didn't mean to, I try to mute you right away. It's what I'd want you to do for me. So thank you.
Did you turn off the camera?
And Madam Supervisor, this is the sheriff. I'm sorry I joined late.
Oh, welcome, Sheriff. Thank you for joining us. And we're on item 4, Lori. Dr. Day, are you sharing screen?
Yes, I'm trying to get my PowerPoint up.
There you go.
Is it up?
Yep. We can all see it. Good.
Okay, very good. Okay. This report is in response to Supervisor Chavez issuance of an off-agenda report. And that was on December the 4th, 2018, and then again on February the 19th, 2020. And this report relates to patient access to prescribed medications upon release from county jails. The report intends to provide the following: the current process of providing medications to patients upon discharge, the current challenges to providing discharge medications, the requirement of the remedial plan for discharge medications, and the proposed revisions of our current processes and the status of the Navitas Health Solutions Project. And Custody Health Services currently has 3 processes or scenarios for providing medications to patients who require medications upon discharge, and with that, prescriptions for medications as well. These scenarios are highly contingent, however, on whether we have advanced notice of the patient's discharge and whether the court has ordered the patient to be released to treatment in the community. So the first scenarios are the court-ordered release programs. And these are where patients are released from custody to court-ordered treatment programs such as Pathways, Project 90, Coastal Lodge, House on the Hill. And this type of release is scheduled in coordination with the receiving program. Custody Health Services is notified in advance by the receiving program of the patient's planned date of discharge. And then we are able to complete the process of issuing a discharge medication order to the provider, and the provider may be a physician and or psychiatrist for the patient's essential medications through what's called the Electronic Health Record or EPIC HealthLink. Under this scenario, the provider then has the opportunity and ample time to complete a discharge order medication and review that order and authorize it. We then send an email confirmation to the receiving program that the patient's prescription has been authorized and can be picked up at any one of the Santa Clara Valley Medical Center pharmacies. The receiving program will then either pick up the patient's medication independent of the patient and or take the patient with them to pick up the medication in the prescription. So court-ordered releases to treatment upon release of the patients are just a small percentage of the patients that are released from Custody Health Services. Prior to COVID-19, there were about 100 discharges a day, and about 20% of those were court-ordered release to program patients. The second type of scenario is the known release date. And this is basically where there is a scheduled and or release date that has already been identified. And about 15% of the patients, of our current patients, are serving a sentence, and they do have a scheduled release date. Custody Bureau uses a system called Criminal Justice Information Control System, or CJIC, which contains the upcoming planned and or release dates for patients with scheduled releases. And Custody Health Services has been exploring with our custody colleagues if there is a way for us to get that information in CJIC, and perhaps that information can be auto-populated and integrated into HealthLink for purposes of providing discharge medication orders for the providers to review. But currently, CJIC system does not have that capacity to communicate and or interface with HealthLink medical record for the purposes of discharge medication and firing off those orders to providers. Instead, Custody Health Services will need to assign staff to review CJIC in real time for any pending releases, then take those and cross-reference those with patients in the patient health record, and then initiate the discharge medication order for the provider to review and authorize. And this is a very time-intensive manual process. However, when we are notified in advance, sometimes the patients will notify us, sometimes the patient's family may notify us, sometimes the patient may submit a white card, and sometimes the court and/or community member may notify us. And when we are notified, we are able to initiate the discharge medication order through the Health Link process for the providers to review those medications and authorize those for pickup. And when we are notified, the patient is able to get his script prior to discharge, his or her script prior to discharge, and then are further provided locations on where to pick up medications. And those will be at any Santa Clara Valley Medical Center pharmacy. The third scenario is a no advance notice of release. And under this scenario, most of the releases that Custody Health Services see on a daily basis are unscheduled. And here the release date is neither known to Custody Health Services, nor does Custody Bureau know that these releases are happening until the date of release. For example, when a patient goes to court and or after they post bail and or after their charges are dropped, then they are subsequently released in real time. Custody Health Services currently learns that the patient will be released or already has been released through communications through CJIC. What happens is that CJIC will basically inactivate their PFN number, which is a number that is assigned to every incarcerated patient that we have. And so what that means is that the patient is no longer here in custody. So without advance notice of these type of releases, Custody Health Services is almost unable all the time to provide the patient with a prescription and or with their medication at discharge. But what the patients do get, regardless of whether we know they're discharged or not, and we have made a practice of this, is that every patient will receive information in their property about where to go to get their medications filled. And so that if they go to any pharmacy to get their medication filled in the Santa Clara Valley pharmacies, then that pharmacist will call Custody Health Services, and Custody Health Services will then initiate the discharge medication order. The doctor will look at that order, authorize that order, and then we will shoot that order back over to the pharmacy. And so the pharmacy will be able to fill that order. So what has been described are the inherent and logistical obstacles that Custody Health Services go through in order to get medications to our patients. But we are making efforts to improve the process of connecting our patients with medications at discharge. But the most difficult, as you can see, are those patients that are released without prior notice and or without any notice to Custody Bureau and or to custody. Other obstacles include after hours. A lot of the patients, when they're released after hours. And so those patients that are released without notice, oftentimes between the hours of 6 and 12 p.m., 6 and 12 a.m., they need to be released. And so those patients are being processed out. And as they're being processed out, a lot of the times Custody Health Services have no notice that they're being processed out because their PFN number basically disappears out of Health Link. So we also have the remedial plan, and part of the remedial plan basically states that we need to do a couple of things. In the remedial plan, as it's written right now, we need to be able to provide medications. Let me just find my notes, I'm sorry. With our remedial plan, we need to provide medications under 3 different scenarios. These are scenarios that we have agreed to with our federal consent plan, and this is what we're now working towards being able to do in both time. So with the remedial plan for discharge medications, we need to provide medications for patients who have been incarcerated with us for at least 7 days, who have been seen by a provider, and who have an active prescription for medications, for essential medications. And so we are working on that now so that the patients upon discharge will get a 30-day script. And so that process is what we're being held to, and that's what we're working towards as we speak. So proposed process improvement for patients upon release, there's several that we're looking at. Of course, the court order release program for patients is working very well. We're meeting that almost at 100% because we have prior notice. We're coordinating with the community program. We're being able to discharge off that discharge medication order to the provider. The provider is able to endorse that order, and then we're able to get that order over to the program to pick up. The known release dates and what we're working on right now is basically how do we work on getting that list of those patients that are being released. They have a known date in CJEC, but we don't have that list. And so what we're working on right now is getting that list in real time. What we need to do is then, of course, assign staff to that list to look at that list in real time, to be able to cross-check that list and cross-reference in the medical record to see if any of those patients that are being released on that day have essential medications that are assigned to them. Then, of course, shoot off that discharge medication order to the provider. The provider then needs to endorse that order, and then we can get that script ready for the patient in real time, and so that when they leave, that they will have that order. Those patients that we have that we don't have that advance order, of course, we're still working with Custody Bureau on the notification process. Again, we will have to assign staff to that process and request medications upon release. And the goal here is, again, to try to provide prescriptions on the day after release. And so we know that we can't do it in real time a lot of the time. So what we're trying to do is put a process in place so that within 24 hours of release, that patient can go to any Santa Clara pharmacy and pick up their script and pick up their order for medication. As far as the Navitus Health Solutions, several years ago, Custody Health leadership proposed a possible pilot program to contract with Navitus Health Solutions, which is a pharmacy benefits manager program where Valley members can go and pick up their medications, and inmates can go and pick up their medications as well at any pharmacy, retail pharmacy such as Walgreens. Since Custody Health Services has looked at this several times between different leaders, and right now that process has not been looked at in probably over a year, and so the pilot has actually been closed out. Currently, what we're looking at is how can we put systems in place, look at the processes that we have now and tighten those up, meet the demands of the federal consent decree, and actually be able to give the patients the medications and or a script in real time. And so under the circumstances right now, we believe that the resources that we have, if we can put those to the processes in place, that we will not be looking at the Navitus project right now. And so that's where we are right now. We're going to basically pilot what we're doing now, work on putting those systems in place, trying to get a list of the patients that are being released that have a scheduled date, look at those patients that are with no release dates that are leaving intermittently, and making sure that we can get a script to them within 24 hours. And I can take any questions.
Thank you. I want to see if there are any questions from my colleagues. And before I go to questions, if I could just make sure, we'll go to public comment and then we'll come back to questions. And Dr. Day, before I take the public speaker, may I just ask, did you just say that the partnership with external pharmacies, the direction to go do that just wasn't followed up on, and so right now no one's following up on it, so you're going to focus on the areas that you outlined?
Correct. When I looked at the Navitus and the contract and pulled stakeholders together to review where we were, it's been almost a year since there was any action on that. And so a lot of whatever was described and or agreed to has basically lost its relevance, and we would almost have to start over with that.
And was that contract a consulting contract specifically on this, or was this an add-on to the contract?
For the medications at discharge?
Uh-huh.
I believe it was in totality.
That meaning that contract, the purpose of the contract was this body of work?
I think the purpose of the contract was so that the patients could have medications and that they would be able to pick up the medications anytime.
Yeah, I guess I just want to make sure we're not paying that contract if they haven't been working a year. That was really my question, but I'll let you think a little bit about that. We'll go to the public and then come back to the for discussion. Thank you. Can we take our public speaker on this item?
The next speaker is Scott Largent. I am unmuting you. You'll have 2 minutes to speak. The timer will start when you begin speaking.
Now, as far as, good afternoon, everybody, Scott Largent. As far as people being discharged from the jail and, of course, provided medication or kind of sent in the right direction of where to get it at, I don't believe right now that there's any available places for anybody to go when they get out of the jail. I know this is a fact for any shelter in Santa Clara County. This is good work. Now, I'm not ragging on this work right here. I think it's fantastic. I've watched the warm handoff. I've watched the whole process of everybody putting this together. But we got the COVID card right now. The end result is there is no place for anybody to go. What are we going to do in the meantime to help these people until the system gets back on track right now? If somebody was released from the Santa Clara County Jail tonight, and it was after 9 o'clock, that 62 bus is not going to be taking them out to Gilroy. They're only going to be able to get to the Armory in Gilroy, and they won't be able to get there because the bus is just not going to work out. I say this a lot. You guys have your cars, you have, you can use Uber, Lyft, all that other stuff like that. These resources have been cut off to people. You can only put 6 people on a bus because of COVID. They don't run the same routes that they always did. You remember in the beginning of COVID, they shut down the light rail. I mean, I was stuck over here near the county building. It was like a bad sci-fi movie. This is what people are dealing with. And I try to kind of hammer it in so people get it because I'm experiencing it. It's the same thing about the bathrooms. There's no bathrooms. There really is. After 5 o'clock, what do you do? And I don't want to talk about my bowel movements, but using a urine jug and a plastic bag when you want to, I'm trying to avoid getting a public urination ticket. I don't, it's just very difficult. And you watch these people, I don't blame them for going on the side of the DA's office, but it's sad when you go look at that in the morning, you're like, wow, I mean, please guys, let's figure something out. The next 2 or 3 weeks is going to be ugly down here.
This concludes the public speakers.
Thank you. I want to go back to my colleagues to see if there are any comments or questions of this item. I don't see any. Judge Manley?
Thank you. Thank you for the presentation, Doctor. I have a question. Evidence-based practices, in my view, are that discharge planning should start the day you're booked into jail. Now, I realize there's a problem when you cannot, and what my first question is, what percentage of those who are individuals released who are mentally ill and would be eligible for receiving a prescription are in the classification that you outlined where no prior notice of release? What percentage of the total population that are released is that?
Judge, I don't have that percentage in front of me, but I can get it for you.
Well, I just wondered, is it large or is it a very small group?
Yeah, I don't have that number.
Okay, I don't want to press you on that. Then let me get to my next question. If you agree that discharge planning should begin with booking into jail, we generally know that those defendants who are prescribed medications once they are booked into jail are prescribed by a doctor in your custody health domain. Now, isn't it possible to gather all that information right at the beginning and have it ready with the prescription already written or prepared through automation, so that and I realized that the medication could change, and that would then we'd have to have a new one. But if that was available, could you not then make that available to the defendants when they are released? even if you did not have much advance notice. What I'm getting at is you've raised what I think is the real issue is this lack of communication or ability to know much because you're separate from admin booking and, you know, from Department of Correction. And I'm just trying to suggest that isn't there a way to work around that and have that prescription ready so that if someone is released, say, tomorrow, you'd be ready to go and not have to just do nothing at all.
And yes, we're looking at that, Judge. We're looking at right now, and I do agree. And I believe that discharge planning should start at the date of admission. And so from the point of entry coming into custody, we should start looking at discharge planning. Right now, what I'm looking at as part of, we're doing some realignment of services and some restructure, is looking at putting a discharge component in place. As it is right now, we don't have a discharge unit and or discharge component. We're also looking at the capabilities of the HealthLink, and I've looked at this already this week. HealthLink has a capability of actually populating a discharge summary. And so what we're going to start doing, and we're looking at that too, is at the beginning, at the initial point of contact with the patient coming in, being booked into booking, that population of that health summary will begin. And so, and you're right, some of the medications change in real time. And so that as we're looking at the discharge summary in HealthLink, we're trying to put the capabilities in so that as medications change, that will populate as well. And if that's the case, and still we're going to have to know when that patient is leaving. The point I was making earlier is with some of those unplanned releases when we're not knowing about them, is that the patients, when they go to court, a lot of the times they're going over in a cohort of several patients at a time. Then when they come back, maybe about 5, 6 o'clock, the release officer starts processing those patients for release by midnight. And once they release a patient, there's some, it's not sort of interfacing with us. Once they release a patient, that PNF number sort of disappears out of HealthLink. What we're looking at doing is possibly in the future, as we're doing some of this reorg, is to put our discharge planners and our discharge team working alongside the release officers so that they can be doing that in tandem. And so as they're processing a patient for release, we're processing their medication and their discharge medication to go to a provider. Because once we do the discharge order in the record, that has to go to a provider. The provider needs to review that, and then the provider needs to authorize it, and then therefore we can send the script off. So that's what we're looking at, having them work in tandem. Right now, it's basically 2 different processes, not communicating and or not logistically being able to interface.
That'd be great. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Pardon me, seeing no other hands, I want to thank Dr. Day, and I would just like to request that if you could give us an update in August of this next year so that we can better understand where you are in process.
Absolutely.
And thanks for hitting the ground running there on something so important to the committee. We'll move to, yes, anybody else? Sorry, I'm hearing hammering in the back. I apologize for that. We're going to go on to item 5. This is regarding our fetal alcohol syndrome disorder report. I'm going to turn to Bruce Copley to present this to us.
Good afternoon, Supervisor and Board. This is a follow-up report stemming from the August 14th, 2019 meeting with reentry, and it includes an additional information now that the Behavioral Health Department has taken lead for the project. What the Behavioral Health Department has done is look at 4 strategies that we believe we can implement between now and 2023. Some of what we will deliver will be leveraged from the prevention services that are offered through the department, and it will include a public awareness prevention that will start in January. We will also convene a stakeholders group that will include Barbara Hansen and Catherine Page and others in the community that are interested in FSSD and how we can better identify and treat individuals that have FASD. The public awareness campaign will include prevention campaign strategies similar to what the department has done for marijuana and other activities where we develop information and education for the community. We will develop evidence-based, culturally appropriate messaging to bring to the community the awareness of FASD and the prevalence of it within our community, especially in the criminal justice department, and also among some of the youth that have difficulties as they matriculate towards adulthood. There'll be standardized messaging that we will develop and disseminate throughout the county. We will develop educational toolkits that we can provide to the community, and it will be across multi-systems that probably touch individuals with FASD over the course of treatment. The second element will then be the screening, assessment, and diagnosis. What we're looking at is the ability to begin to identify high-risk mothers who are possibly at risk to give birth to children with symptoms of FASD. There is a screening tool, 5 Ps, that was identified earlier in the work plan that was presented both to the board and to this committee. And we would like to initiate discussion with Health and Hospital about developing that for the obstetrical patients, as well as how we can maybe leverage it within the First 5 program that is looking at the developmental issues with children that can possibly be due to FASD, as well as other issues that preclude the child from developing normally in their first 5 years. Since we already have that mechanism in place, this looks like a fairly easy application to initiate, again, at the early stages of where FASD should be identified. Thirdly, we would like to target service interventions throughout the county, working with the various programs that come in contact with mothers and provide additional screenings, and again, try to identify early symptoms that are necessary to begin to address the issues for children and young adults. And finally, in the 4th phase, we would like to work with Health and Hospital doctors and the medical staff in looking at developing cross-training for those practitioners that may come in contact with FASD issues and better identify early identification referral for services. This would take us through 2024. Along the way, then, with the convening of the stakeholders, we'll begin to look at the other work plan objectives that address adults and also adults within the criminal justice system, and begin to identify how identification and a treatment can be developed to, again, begin to mitigate the symptoms and some of the stresses these individuals have as they try to cope within our community. So let me stop there and take any questions, Supervisor, you or the commission's have.
Great, thank you. Why don't we start with our public speaker, and then we'll come back to the committee. And if the committee is interested, please raise your blue hand or wave wildly.
The next speaker is Barbara Hanson. I am unmuting you. You will have 2 minutes to speak. The timer will start when you begin speaking.
Yes, this is Barbara Hanson. I'm with the FASD Collaborative, and we want to express such deep gratitude for this. And I want to give you a picture of why what Santa Clara County is doing with FASD is so incredibly unique, perspicacious, and urgent. My sister-in-law wrote this, from Washington State wrote this. We have 3 adopted children with FASD. They are now in their 30s. When they were young, we were assured that when they were ready, that there would be many services available to help them have an independent, meaningful life. When the time came, not one agency had an understanding of what they needed, nor would they claim them. Mental health said the folks needed to be supported by developmental agencies, and then vice versa. As adults, they have learned to use whatever systems are available to meet their needs. extensive use of hospitals, the 911 system, jails, mental health, and community counselors, private doctors, homeless shelters, inpatient addiction and treatment centers, and mental health facilities are where they get their help. I would say that 2 of the 3 have used much more than $1 million each in care and services, and they are only in their 30s. If there had been one funded program, facility, or agency with understanding of their unique needs, perhaps it would have been different. As we said at one agency early on, it looks like our kids are destined to live under a bridge somewhere unless we live forever. They said, I guess so. And our kids are only 3 of many. So thank you, Santa Clara County.
This concludes our public speakers.
Thank you. And Barbara, thanks for being the inspiration here. And I also just wanted to acknowledge that that this work really was initiated out of this committee and something now that the county will be adopting holistically. So thank you for all your service. And another person who was an inspiration is Kristen Clifford, who has her hand raised.
Thank you. As the adoptive parent of a now adult with FASD, I can absolutely testify that it's just been brilliant to watch this county come forward with this kind of a plan. We're the only one in the nation that's looking at cradle to grave for this particular disability. Having tried to navigate a multiplicity of systems on my son's behalf, I'm an educator and had great difficulty getting him special education services. And I think Marianne DeWong can talk more about those systems as we go along, but also now becoming intimately familiar with our judicial system. I just want to say that there's an overrepresentation of people with this disability in the criminal justice system. This impacts judgment, this impacts impulsivity, this impacts all sorts of things. This is a lifelong brain disorder, and it needs to be treated as such. And I'm hoping somewhere along the line that maybe the collaborative, which I'm part of, can have a more fulsome discussion with Matt Fisk about maybe red flagging some of these symptoms at booking, so that perhaps we can take a deeper dive into some of the people that are in our custody to see if this is exactly the underlying condition that's driving their behavior, and get them the appropriate services rather than incarcerating them. So again, thanks so much for all of this hard work, and really looking forward to seeing it unfold in our county. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments or questions? And then what I would just say is for the committee, is that a piece of what Christine raised can be added to the work plan?
Of course.
Great. Thanks, Bruce. I appreciate that. And then let's just check in again, not in our next meeting, but our June or August meeting, whenever our summer meeting is. I think that's a really good body of work. And I just want to say thank you to all of you, and also to Miguel Marquez, who I know has been really active in this area. So we'll go to item 6. This is the Behavioral Health Dashboard for Criminal Justice Clients. And on this item, just to frame it up for a moment, this is a dashboard that we asked to be established to reflect ability and utilization of criminal justice services. Sherry, are you leading us on this, or Gabby? I see both of you.
This will be, yes, Todd, Brian, and Gabby.
Great, thank you.
Okay, good afternoon, Supervisor Chavez and Reentry Network committee members. Again, my name is Gabby Olivares, and I'm the Division Director of Criminal Justice. And in company with Sherry Terrell, Todd Landriel, and Brian Wagner, we're here to report out on the Behavioral Health Services Department dashboards that have been created by extracting data from our new electronic health record, My Avatar. So the data that you see before you here is a data capture from September 1st, when we went go live with My Avatar, through November 15th. And just to provide some context to this slide, we have behavioral health clinicians that work in Department 60 and 61. And when a client comes into the courtroom, the behavioral staff clinicians conduct what's called an integrated justice screening assessment. And the screening is conducted with the client and is part of the service enrollment. And we make treatment referrals to mental health and substance abuse providers. This data is utilized to determine the client's individual treatment needs and gather the appropriate referral data to make a level of care determination. The IJS form collects a wide array of data, including but not limited to clients' ethnicity, gender, referral source, referral site, level of care recommendation, insurance status, language, living situation, whether they're conserved. So the data that you see before you is a count of 189 total assessments that were completed by our staff that work in Departments 60 and 61. We also capture our diversion cases. So through this data pool, we had 3 clients that were what we consider track 1. And we had 3 clients that what we consider our track 2 diversion cases, which are the cases that are incompetent to stand trial. And we had 1 client that was under conservatorship. So moving through the slide, gender, we capture gender status. So the majority of the clients that were provided assessment during this period were male, 76%, 22% female. We also capture ethnicity. So we have Mexican American, non-Hispanic, and other Hispanic. 18% were Mexican. Also, we capture language. So the majority of the assessments that were done were by English-speaking consumers, and 22% did not designate language. So you'll see that there's no entry. Then moving on, we have our referral source. The majority of these assessments were conducted in Department 61. The other referrals came from probation, pretrial, and our reentry center, and a small percentage was not identified, 1%. The next you'll see is a referral site. So these are all the locations that these referrals were made. So community solutions, 17%. Other, you'll see that there's an other category, and usually this is for consumers that have outside resources or they have insurance when they come to us. So we refer them to their insurance carrier. Then 16% was a referral to our Gardner Family Care Center, Momentum, our IOP program, which receives a lot of referrals, our Muriel Wright Crisis Residential, our court psychiatrists received some referrals. That was a small percentage, 5%. And usually those referrals are to quickly stabilize clients, and then they refer on to other programs. And then we have our Momentum program that also received about 5% of referrals. We also capture the living status. So at the time of screening, you can see a huge percentage, 40% of our consumers are homeless. And then the other category is a combination of transitional housing units, hotels, shelters. Then the next slide at the bottom that you'll see, it's level of care recommendation. So a huge percentage of our clients go to the intensive program, to our outpatient services, and 68% to the rest of our continuum of care. And the last thing that is captured during the demographics is you'll see a huge percent of our population, 71%, are Medi-Cal beneficiaries. Okay, so moving on to our second slide, which is a combination of our severity ratings. During our assessment process, we will look at severity ratings where we rate, is this a mild condition, a moderate, substantial, or severe, where an immediate intervention needs to take place. Our ASAM criteria is what we use, the American Society of Addiction Medicine. It is broken down into 6 dimensions. The first dimension is acute intoxication and withdrawal potential. So basically during this dimension, we will ask consumers, are they currently intoxicated? When is the last time that they used any kind of substances? The second dimension we'll look at is biomedical conditions. Are there any current medical conditions that this consumer is experiencing? Do they need immediate medical care? Are they taking any current medications that need to be addressed that should be documented in the referral? Do they need access to medications? The next thing is our emotional, behavioral, cognitive conditions. Currently, what is their emotional state? Next dimension looks at readiness to change. Are they currently motivated? Do they want to enter treatment? Next dimension is relapse, continued use. What's the potential to relapse? We rate that. And the last dimension we look at is their recovery environment. When they release out of custody, are they going to a safe environment? Are they going to go back to an environment that was not safe, or potentially they could relapse? What you have here before you is our dimension 3, the emotional, behavioral, and cognitive conditions. So this is a combination of our rating scales. So if you look at the most prevalent rating scale that we looked at was moderate. And during the screening process, we take a strength-based, multi-dimensional approach when it comes to considering the client needs, obstacles, as well as assets, resources, support, while we're developing our recommendation. It is widely used and comprehensively set guidelines for placement. We get a lot of consumers that come back to us that were previously in treatment for whatever reason, did not stay in treatment. So we look at their severity ratings. Has anything changed since the last time we screened you? Perhaps your risk was moderate, but now it's severe. So we go back to asking the same questions as we update our assessment.
Gabby, could I ask you to hold just for a moment? May I ask Brian if you can make this slide full screen? And mostly just for those of us who well, like me, who are older.
Sure, hold on one second.
Totally appreciate it, thanks.
Gabby, this is Todd. Maybe one thing you could also highlight, I was recalling from our conversation, the IJS is completed by your county team, correct?
That's correct. Our county team that works in Department 60 and 61, and also our staff that work at the Reentry Center also complete this assessment.
Right, and just one thing for the audience that I'll point out while Brian's adjusting. Most of you on the call may be aware that starting in January, we'll be beginning phase 2 of our electronic health record rollout, which will be working to include our CBO partners. Once we have our CBO partners working with our EHR, we'll be able to also roll out other different types of metrics and expand the dashboard. So this is just a picture of a small point in time. In the future, we'll be able to grow and evolve these dashboards to be more robust.
Thank you,
yes,
Todd.
Thank you, Todd, for that addition. And also, I just also wanted to say that we also look at this because we want to evaluate trends, and we want to look at if there's gaps. Also, what's the greatest clinical need of our clients? In our current programs, as we're closely working with our community-based organizations on releasing our consumers, this is critical information for them to have. Also, do we need to make adjustments to our program to more effectively meet the needs of our consumers and our target population? This is, as Todd said, a small capture in time. We also want to complement what we're doing. We will be participating in the Stepping Up initiative. We're really excited about that. So behavioral health will be working on convening a diverse team of leaders, stakeholders that will work closely with us to look at the jail population. These dashboards represent the consumers that we're currently serving, but we'd like to cast a wider net. We'd like to work closer with the jail to look at, what's the daily census of people booked in the jail that are SMI, that have been identified as having substance abuse disorders. We screen a small set of that population, but we don't always have an in reach to all those consumers. So we want to look at the bookings that are happening on a daily basis in the jail. Also, we're very interested at looking at the average length of stay in the jail, and better connections to treatment if those jail stays are limited. So thank you. That's all I have. And Todd or Brian, would you like to add anything else that I've to our presentation today?
You did a really nice job, Gabby. I'm very excited about the last piece you mentioned on stepping up.
Yeah, nothing to add from my end. Thanks.
Thank you. So I just quickly want to say that 37 counties are actually in California participating in stepping up, and Santa Clara hopes to be number 38 with the support of everybody here at the Reentry Network Committee.
Gabby, thanks a bunch for that. A lot of good information. I'm going to go to the public and then I'll come back to the board for comments.
Thank you.
The next speaker is Scott Largent. I am unmuting you. Please accept the unmute and you'll have 2 minutes to speak. The timer will start when you begin speaking.
Good afternoon, everyone. Scott Largent. We've talked a lot about different dashboards and kind of keeping tabs on all the different services that we provide in and out of the jail, including other county resources. What I'm kind of concerned about here is I just don't think the numbers are accurate. When we talk about how many different detox beds we have, the numbers are not right. And when I listen to people in power, because I do listen to the city council meetings for every city, and I listen to different counties meetings, and when I cross-check the information, it's not right. So somebody, this frustrates me because I'm kind of a numbers person in a previous life. We have no beds available. So let's just start talking about that at these meetings. We have no beds. Okay, so maybe that needs to be on this list that's saying, look, there's no shelter beds, there's no overnight warming locations, there's no rec centers, there's no bathrooms. And here's another thing that somebody said. They are not going to a safe environment. The gal had spoken about that. They are not going to a safe environment. If I ran things right now, when people left the jail, I would teach them in the parking lot how to fight. Okay, that's one thing. I would give them a can of bear mace. I would give them a sleeping bag and some thermals and a tent, because that's, I'd give them survival gear. And then I would make sure they knew, don't go to the left down near Spring Street, and don't even get on that light rail to go down to St. James Park. I mean, guys, let's start having real conversation about what's really going on. I know you put a lot of work into this thing right now. We've got a real problem right now. People having to go to the Armory in Gilroy to stay alive right now is not cool.
This concludes the public speakers.
Thanks, Frank. Thanks, Scott. And I'm going to go now back to the board to see if there are any comments or questions. And I'm going to go to Christine Clifford.
Thank you for this report. I'm going to beat this drum one more time, but a very common secondary disabilities or problems for people with FASD are substance abuse and mental health difficulties. So again, somewhere along the line, it would be really great if the FASD Collaborative and people who are stakeholders in that area could fold in some information and training about how to recognize these folks as they navigate the mental health systems, Judge Manley's court, the criminal justice system, so that as you're developing your dashboard, that they can be recognized as the people with the underlying disability that they actually have, rather than siloed into something that is more of a secondary result of that primary disability. So thanks again.
Thanks, Christine. Gabby, I don't know if you have any thoughts about that.
So luckily, very closely with Bruce, and I know that he has a lot of experience with fetal alcohol syndrome and training. So I'm going to definitely schedule some time with Bruce and see what additional training we can provide to our staff. Our staff do current referrals to substance abuse and mental health. So I think that's a great comment and an opportunity for additional training for our staff. We're doing a training series actually in January. Part of that training will include Judge Manley. So we can also add that to our training series in January.
Thanks, Gabby. I'm going to Judge Manley and then to Aaron.
Thank you very much, Gabby, for your report. I just have one quick question. You talked about this is an ongoing project. There's going to be more dashboards. What I'm interested in, when this discussion started a number of years ago, will you be able to identify the number of open beds, open slots at each treatment program on a daily basis so that we can perhaps, hopefully, speed up the process of moving people from custody into programs?
So we currently have that information. It's in Unicare. The hope is to have that information in Avatar when we go live with our providers. Brian, you may have better, you may be better able to address this question, but my understanding is once our providers, all of our provider network is on Avatar, we'll be able to have access to that information.
Thank you.
Yeah, I believe that that's correct. We're looking at bed management solutions within My Avatar and external to My Avatar to assure that when we have everybody up on the same system, that we can get those numbers and have them updated accurately and ongoingly, so we have a clear sense of what's going on in the community at any given time.
Thank you very much.
We've launched.
Please go ahead, Gabby.
Sorry, just lastly, we've launched our bed management with Evans Lane already through My Avatar. So the nice thing is that Evans Lane's a county program, so we can kind of test it out with Evans Lane before we go live with all of our providers.
And just one other thing, just to follow up on Judge Manley's point, that would also allow us, would My Avatar allow us to see the availability of beds and also the waiting list in real time?
I would say yes. The the referrals are going to be all coming through My Avatar. So we have both in a series of locations in CJS, in Gateway for SUTS, and in the Mental Health Call Center. Almost all referrals are going to be going through those avenues. The documentation, the referrals will be completed in that system, made out to the various referring or the receivers of the referrals, the either internal clinics or the community-based agencies, and all of that is reportable within the system. So we can see how long any referral is waiting to be initiated into treatment, be seen, be responded to, and so forth. Yeah.
Yeah, and Brian, I'll just say, I think both Judge Manley and I and Aaron, and there are a number of us that have been, that really since 2015 have really been interested in better understanding this question, in part because we've had a very difficult time understanding what part of the system actually needs more investment, because it's hard to know what's really happening out in the world. And I appreciate, Gabby, the point you're raising about being able to start with Evans Lane. And one question I would have for and I'm not sure who to ask this of, but I may just put this on Miguel's to-do list, is that I think if we can take the Evans Lane model and figure out how to, using My Avatar to at least on a weekly basis, be able to make that updatable to the board. Because I will say that we get all kinds of different dashboards. And just so you all know, this is something I press on, because I think for leaders in the organization, when you have an organization that's 20,000 people big with an $8 billion budget, really understanding strategically how to make investments depends a lot on the departments being able to give information in real time that's really clear, which is why we've been pressing on this. But I think it would be really important to see whether or not the tool is one from a policymaking perspective that's helpful. And then as we learn about, and I realize with Evans Lane, one of the challenges is it's so small, we've got to be careful about HIPAA and all that, but I do think we really want to be able to understand strategic investments long-term. So I don't have a solution there. I'm really just asking if you all could think about that relative to Evans Lane and how to make the information regularly available. Any thoughts on that, Miguel?
Yeah, I think absolutely we should see what the tool can offer to help the policymakers make their decisions fully informed. I think that's been a weakness since I've come back to the county, even the first time I was here. And I want to take a minute just to give a shout out to the team for getting us this far. It wasn't easy to do this implementation in the midst of a pandemic, right? Because the plan had been to bring people on site, do hands-on training, all the things that you do with providers to get this kind of a system rolling. And they pivoted, they did virtual training. We didn't know if it was going to work, but we didn't want to wait months on end. There was one other county ahead of us. We were the second one to try virtual training. It worked. We're online internally at the county. As was noted earlier, we're going to expand now to our CBO providers, which is going to give us even more data. And I think there's various modules and reporting tools that it's going to be a work in progress that we look forward to getting input as to what kind of information would be most helpful to the board, most helpful to bodies like this one, to help us all make the kind of data-driven policy decisions we'd like to make on behalf of our clients.
Thanks, Miguel. And I do want to say a very sincere thank you to the team. I know everything that's getting done right now it's very Ginger Rogers style, right? In heels and backwards. So we get it. Thank you. I'm going to go to Erin. Did you have a thought or a question?
Well, actually, much of what I was going to say was going to be covered because it's really exciting what's happening with the dashboards, that we're getting the data. And I think that part of what will be exciting to get is if we can track where the optimal referral would have been. Because I was looking at some of the stuff that's written there, and it's in terms of the relapse vulnerability of where their placement is. So that we might be able to find them a place to go, but it may not be the ideal place. But if we're looking to build the system out to scale of what we truly need, somehow figuring out how we track what really we should have been able, ideally would have been able to do, rather than what we were able to do. I think that would allow us to even move the system even better. But congratulations, this is a big step.
Thank you. And I'll just ask that, Eric, Dr. Day, did you want to weigh in?
I was just going to mention that we're also getting some provisional access to Avatar. And so that way we can interconnect together and look at capabilities in the community when we're discharging our patients.
That's great. Great news. Thank you. I would just ask that if we could get a general update on the progress again at our summer meeting, just to know, like, if there any help you need, are you stuck? How's it going? What do you think? That would be great. I don't have any other comments. Then I'm going to ask if we can move on to item 7. This is Proposition 25, Senate Bill 10 report. And Matthew, I think that's you. Yeah, thanks.
Good afternoon to everybody. I'll take a few moments to present. Really, my presentation is two-part, and I'll go ahead and share my screen. Okay, could you please confirm that you can read a really dull-looking PowerPoint slide?
Gotcha. We can, yeah.
Okay. Well, SB 10 was a law that was passed by the California legislature in 2018. Essentially, it replaced the money bail system with a risk-based pretrial system. It did a number of other things, but that was kind of the main thrust of that law. Opponents to that bill were subsequently able to gain enough signatures to delay the law's implementation and to kind of set it aside until the 2020 elections. Proposition 25 was the ballot measure, which was regarding support of SB 10 or not supporting SB 10. So Proposition 25 did not pass. I would like to mention that the Santa Clara County voters did support it. If you looked at the vote in Santa Clara County, our voters were supportive of it, but it did not pass on the state level. And so it has three main implications at this point in time. One is that the money bail laws remain in effect. we're using a lot less money bail than we used to. I'd just like to point that out, especially in this $0 bail environment. Largely, we're working in a risk-based environment right now, and we've seen success. 2, counties will not be eligible for the anticipated funding that was related to that law, which is unfortunate. And 3, counties will not be required to adopt, implement, or validate risk assessments. Many of you may not know this, but in the state of California, Santa Clara County was the first county to have a locally scientifically validated risk assessment tool for pretrial. Now, because our community does support risk-based release, and much of the work that went into SB 10 and really Prop 25 was from our community, from the Bail and Release Work Group, which started back, I think in 2013 or 2014. And because we are in harmony with board and community supported efforts, we're going to continue to do the following. Pretrial will continue to provide risk assessments to the court, the defense, and prosecution. And we're closely monitoring a case called Humphrey. This case has to do with some very important questions, and it's to be heard before the Supreme Court. We don't have a date yet. I'll go ahead and read these questions. I'm not one to usually read a PowerPoint presentation, but these aren't necessarily word for word questions, but these are the concepts that are anticipated to be covered in the hearings that have to do with Humphrey. Do constitutional due process and equal protection require consideration of a criminal defendant's ability to pay in setting and or in reviewing the amount of monetary bail? So that has to do with taking into consideration a defendant's ability to pay when setting bail. Also, in setting the amount of monetary bail, may a trial consider public and victim safety? Must it do so? And third, under what circumstances does the California Constitution permit bail to be denied in non-capital cases? So that has to do with a person's right to bail, that concept. So here we are amidst the COVID-19 pandemic. I wish we could say post-pandemic. Mid-COVID-19, we are continuing to work together, as evidenced in all the presentations I've heard in today's meeting. And we are successfully managing jail populations and preventing as much as possible the spread of COVID-19 in the jails and the community. Number 4 is the second part of my presentation, and that is that we are moving forward with the implementation of a new risk assessment tool. This is my second and final slide. So there's been a lot of, I'll say, controversy and interest as far as pretrial and other criminal justice related risk assessments. Algorithms are a topic of interest among many different groups. I liked the definition I heard the other day that algorithms are essentially policies embedded in code. Hopefully well-founded policies based on facts established by really sound, strong evidence. So we do plan on utilizing a new risk assessment tool. We've been working with an instrument called the PSA. First off, back in 2012, the Pretrial Justice Institute helped us to establish a risk assessment tool, which was the Modified Virginia tool. It's the Pretrial Risk Assessment Instrument. And so ours is called the SCC PRI. Now, I think about 2 years ago, research was done by Pretrial Services consulting with a lot of its public safety and justice partners, and they researched what risk assessments are available as far as the pretrial stage. And there were relatively few. I'll give you an example. There was a very prevalent one was the Virginia tool, which we were already using. The Ohio tool, although it's developed in Ohio, it's used in a lot of places. The Colorado tool, same situation. A lot of locally created and locally not necessarily independently validated tools. And then there's the PSA. The PSA has a number of features that are attractive. One of those features is that it's based on the largest data set ever used for pretrial populations. And it was designed by a nonprofit entity and independently validated. I think at this point in time, more jurisdictions use the PSA than any other tool, so that gives us additional technical assistance and peer support. And another thing that's really worthy of consideration when it comes to the PSA is the fact that it avoids bias and encourages neutrality by not asking any demographic questions other than age. So it ignores race, ethnicity, and gender. It does ask what the person's age is, and that does feed into the points. So that's one of the main topics of concern, that some instruments could have unwittingly bias built in. And so this is the most neutral tool that we are aware of, and it's one that we have been receiving assistance through the Justice System Partners, a contractor, to help develop. One of the other things that's really helpful with the PSA is that we're able to adjust it and make policy decisions that meet the needs of our community. I think that's really important because communities are all different from one another. I won't read this list, but these are the things that we've done so far as we've been researching and designing the new risk assessment tool replacement. We anticipate implementing it in 3 to 6 months. And really, I'd just like to point out that we are engaging everybody that we can, especially opponents to risk assessments. We want to understand what the concerns are. Our next steps are to reconvene with our pretrial work group, which is composed of pretrial services, TSS, the court, the defense and prosecution, and some community-based representatives as well. So we're going to talk about, at this point in time, now that SB 10 does not require us to go with an assessment tool, and we're not bound by the law to do certain things with that tool, we need to get back together and verify our consensus on its content, format, and a feasible timeline for implementation. We have just a little bit more programming to do, although we've already calibrated it in our POPS system. And of course, training of all parties until everybody is comfortable with it. And that'll probably be formal training as well as brown bag lunches, probably virtual ones these days. And then rather than just launching it all of a sudden, we plan on doing kind of a soft launch. One of the key things that's really important about a risk assessment tool is to continuously review it, revalidate it, and refine it according to needs. I think that the best approach is to really point out the strengths of the tool and what its limitations are. And the final point I'd like to make is that just like when I don't know much about this at all, but I read that when you go to predict the weather, you use at least 15 instruments. So that's how we're treating this algorithmic score. It's very helpful as a neutral baseline reference point. You know, a weather vane tells what direction the wind blew historically in this location. This is a locally and historically validated risk assessment tool. So it's kind of like a weather vane, but it's not the end all be all number. And we get information as early as we can. We validate it and verify it as much as we can. We really have a goal of contextualizing that information to encourage animated discussions in the courtroom. We also recognize that once we've done our assessment, the case continues to develop and the bench receives a lot of additional information that they need to take into account. Even the day of court, people emerge into the courtroom and further inform the court. So our goal is to utilize the algorithmic score as one of about 8 components of our tool. I'm happy to answer any questions that anybody might have.
There are no public comments, so I'm going to go right to the board for thoughts and comments. Are there any questions, feedback, or comments that folks want to make on this presentation? I don't see any. Oh, Damon?
Thanks, Supervisor. If I could just briefly comment and thank Matt for all the work he's been doing on this project. Thank David and the District Attorney's Office and the court for how they've worked with us kind of collaboratively to move this PSA forward. I appreciate Matt mentioning the fact that there obviously has been some controversy, not only around PSAs, but Prop 25 as it was addressed in the election. And there is a legitimate dialogue going on in terms of how algorithms can unintentionally bake in historic inequities in the decision-making process. I give just a very quick example, which is oftentimes failure to appear rates, prior failures to appear in court will be factored into decision-making in terms of release. And the reality is oftentimes failures to appear have to do with issues related to poverty and disproportionately reflect on communities of color. So this really is a legitimate dialogue going on. But I think what many of us have discussed is we also have interfaced with the community talking about it is it a better option than simply relying on an individual judicial decision maker having to make that call without the information and all the different information that Matt and a PSA is providing them. I don't think there's any one simple solution to this. The dialogue is going to continue, but it feels like our county has made quite a bit of progress moving with this particular instrument, as well as the district attorney by and large taking a position that they're no longer going to push for cash bail. And I know that David has been beating that drum on behalf of DA Rosen for a long time. So I just wanted to acknowledge all of that, and I'll hand it back to you, Supervisor.
Thanks, Damon. Any other comments or questions? The only thing, David, go ahead.
Sorry about that, Supervisor. And of course, I return the compliment for the whole team. And just in terms of timeline, I know, I mean, offline we'll deal with the details, but just to inform everyone else here, I think part of the process will be Matt coming to help educate key people in my office, the judiciary, of course, because, you know, it's very hard to transition between these systems right now. And I think there's a lot of, there's just a lot of core misunderstanding. You know, honestly, as a legal issue, it's probably one of the most challenging legal issues I've ever had to understand. And that's just true, you know, just really hard. And then as a public safety issue, and this is something I know I've gotten to talk about to you, Super Chavez, a lot of it is counterintuitive, so that people often think things that are actually protective of public safety. Really, it's illusory when you kind of get into the details of the system. So I think what we, you know, so that we don't have like kind of a, I mean, I don't know how long it will take, but I think that the next step is once these final validations are done, I think if the various criminal justice partners can kind of work together to train on this so that the transition is both a soft opening, Matt, as you suggested, I think that's a great idea, but also something that I think we can get a lot of buy-in if we take that step before we kind of go live. And you know, I'm very happy to collaborate on that. And I think we can get that done successfully. Thank you.
Yeah, I think that any other comments before I jump in? I think, so a couple things. One, I think it's going to be really critical that, you know, within the sphere of the law, that we're deliberate in the steps that we take, and that we're really inclusive of the broader community. So there's a lot of buy-in in the direction that we're taking. And the one thing that I think that was beneficial to us spending so much time in that bail release work group was that we all got a chance to hear each other and really deeply understand the goals that everybody had. And I think that's going to be critical if we want the public to buy into any approaches, because while the state law, you know, while there are implications for that, in some respects, it's I think it sets a minimum standard, but not a maximum response from every community that wants to address public safety and justice in their community in a holistic, safe way and a fair way. So anyway, so I think it would be great if you all met. I think one thing we should think about is whether or not there is value to having some public hearings around this, and if so, whether or not the Public Safety and Justice Committee is the place to do that, and or whether or not it makes sense for us, at least for one meeting, to reconvene the bail release work group and then do a public hearings based on the work product that you all already developed. I'm very open to either one of those. The one benefit of the bail release work group is we're going to have a lot of the players that have seen this through, so there may be value in that. The benefit of the Public Safety and Justice Committee, and that on that committee we had community folks, which I think is actually a very significant benefit. Now that I'm saying it out loud, that may be the way to go. But to have you all have some internal strategic discussions, have it come back to that board to get broader community feedback would be a thought. I'll just leave that up to the leadership of the Public Defender's Office, the District Attorney's Office, and Matt, your office, to make a recommendation. And perhaps, and I'm not sure about the timing, but perhaps after you've had a chance to talk, you've got a chance to think about your timeline, just shoot me an email and let me know how you'd like to proceed. And I'll be comfortable either way. It's just the thing I do like about the bail release work group is we have committee members on it. Okay, so seeing no other comments or questions, we're going to go to our last item before adjourning, and that is to take a look at the Reentry Network work plan. The one thing I wanted to say about this work plan, folks, is it's long. We put it in detail because we actually, believe it or not, really want your input. So I don't want to adopt it today. What I really want to do is ask if you all could give it a read and then give us your feedback on it. You can send your thoughts to Maya, and Maya will integrate in, there she is. Maya will integrate in any of the thoughts or comments that you have or issues that you want to make sure we work on. I didn't want to just dump it on you and ask you to respond today to it. I really do, this committee was really made up years ago by my predecessor, George Shirakawa, and really Pastor Tony Williams, to try to address issues relative to reentry, and reentry's changed. And so I really do want to make sure we get your feedback and your input. So we'll bring this back to our next meeting. On this item, we're going to go to public comment. And if you have any other comments, feel free to share them now. And if not, we will, after this comment, we'll adjourn.
The next speaker is Scott Largent. I am unmuting you. You'll have 2 minutes to speak. The timer will start when you begin speaking.
Good afternoon, everybody. I guess this might be the last public comment for the year. The Reentry Network. We have a lot of people that line up there to try to get help, and they just are not they're not allowed to get the services. And I do understand that. A lot of this is about money. Well, most of it is. Can we get creative? If these people are lining up, why don't we set up another table, maybe out in another parking lot? Maybe we divert those people somewhere else to provide something. Now, we have the ability right now. Everybody ends up down here. They enter into the system. They go to court. They go to the P. What a fantastic point to start pulling them in. This is where it all started for me getting clean. I threw in the towel down here almost 5 years ago. Okay? But I'm still down here. I'm still stuck in all of this. I'm still trying to navigate it. And you guys know the hole that I've dug. Not on probation, not on parole. I don't even really have a criminal record, drug diversion charge. Yet, I'm across the street in a van. No one's ever tried to figure out how to help me to house me, or there's so many things that are out there that are just, it just seems basic. Just take the time. I do appreciate some of you that did that with me, took the time to sit down, in a way, hold my hand and help me navigate certain things. Some people didn't want to talk to me at all, and some people went over and above. And Matt Fisk, I really appreciate you listening. It's very important, and you're a dynamite guy to be on this panel. And we need more people like you in power in our community. You listen to me, and that's important. I appreciate that. And I know some of you do too. Same with you, Cindy. I appreciate everything you've done. Thank you.
Thanks, Scott. So any comments about the work plan, Wes? Wes, you're on mute.
I just want to let everybody know I was on the wrong website, but I've been listening all this time. And I'm an alternate, so I don't have a right to vote, but I appreciate what Scott Largent has always said. He's really in the community, and I have been on the Behavioral Health Board since 1986, I believe, and always the discharge of people at midnight has always been an issue, and I can't understand why custody cannot at least release people who have behavioral health issues earlier during the day so they can seek help. But when they're discharged at midnight, and I do volunteer work as a chaplain in jail. Something's got to gel here. I mean, and we have a new director in custody health, and I appeal to her to take a look at why these discharges are so late in the day. That's my concern. Thank you.
Thanks very much. And what we can do, and I know the sheriff was here with us for a bit, but we can add that to the agenda to talk about release times. I know we've had some discussions about it, but we should just agendize it. Sheriff Smith will work with your office to do that perhaps for the next meeting.
Yes, that's fine.
Great, thanks a bunch. All right, everyone. I do want to say a very big thank you. I know this is a big committee. It takes a lot of time. These meetings can be long and in depth, and I just want to really appreciate all of you very, very much. And I hope you have a really safe and healthy holiday, and please stay away from everybody you love. That's the way we want to.
Supervisor, can I just take a moment to say one last thanks to Judge Deborah Ryan, who this is her last meeting. She's been our presiding judge for 2 years. I don't think anybody would have expected this year of 2020 to turn out as it did. Presiding judges, for those that don't know, served for 2 years. So for the last part of your tenure, you had to deal with probably the court's toughest year ever. It needed bold leadership, and you provided that bold leadership. So on behalf of the county, I just want to say thank you so much for your service. We're going to miss you. We look forward to working with Judge Zahner. And I guess when I think about that, it reminds me of when I took over for, some of you may remember back in 2009, I took over for Ann Ravel as county counsel. And everyone told me, Miguel, you're going to have some big pumps to fill. And I think that's true of Judge Zahner. So thank you so much for all you've done. Appreciate it.
Thank you very, very much for those kind thoughts. And, I think I was able to weather through this and get through this with the great help of all of you and all of my colleagues. So I much appreciate all of your support and all of the work that you do at the county too. Really wonderful group of people. Thanks, I'll miss you. But I'll see you, I won't be long. I'm going back to criminals, so you'll see me again.
Good, get a little stalking in there, good.
Here,
Although I know that's against the law, I'll be careful about that. Deborah Ryan, thank you, Judge Ryan. Really appreciate you and all of you. Really be safe, be well, and I'll look forward to working with you in the new year. For those of you I won't get to see before then. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
David, mark me as present instead of absent.